I'm a comic book artist, and I mostly self-publish them as zines. Comics are about Central American narratives, um, and we're here because Maya is really cool, and I really appreciate their work, and we're here to support.
Yeah, I make comic books too. So I met Maya. I'm from LA, so I met Maya at a reading that you did in LA, I think.
Oh, for
the
LA Zine
Zine
Fest.
Fest.
Yeah.
I've been following their work ever since, and then came out tonight to support. So.
I like to say that a comic book is like a museum that you hold in your hands. It's something that you can take everywhere you go. You experience beautiful artwork and a great story at the same time.
Yeah, it's freedom. So Brina makes comics about being Central American. I make comics about mental health, blackness, queer identities. Maya makes comics about their experience as a gender queer person. So the freedom to be who you are, because we're sitting in a room featuring a comic that's about civil rights next to Hellboy. So that's awesome.
Tonight, welcome to the Cartoon Art Museum and our brand new beautiful location at 781 Beach Street. After being without a gallery for 2 years, it is super exciting to be here. So thank you. I know a lot of you said you came out for the first time tonight, so give yourself a round of applause. So tonight it is my distinct pleasure to talk about a series that I think is really great, The Secret Loves of Geek Girls and Geeks. And we're here particularly to celebrate the release of Secret Love of Geeks. I know that this time they had a little bit more of an expanded sort of motto going into it to make it a much more inclusive selection of stories, so I really appreciate that about the series, because I know that this was very powerful for a lot of people, and now it's going to be powerful for even more people. Without further ado, I would like to introduce Maya Kobe, who has been featured in your genderqueer comics with a selection in Secret Love of Geeks, and I will let Maya go ahead and do a wonderful reading, including some of those pieces, and then afterwards we'll invite some extra guests down to talk about this wonderful series. Maya?
Yay! Thank you. Yay, thank you so much for coming, everyone. Yeah, so I started the series Genderqueer Comics as a sort of webcomic strip on Instagram in late 2016, and then saw a screen cap of a tweet from editor Hope Nicholson asking for non-binary comics, and sent her some of these strips, and she chose 8 of them to be in the book. So I'm going to read a selection that includes some of the ones that are in the book and then some additional ones as well. So let's see if I can make this slide work. So this is from my Genderqueer comic series. Is that showing up there? All right. Androgyny. When I was 14, I got my first short haircut. I went from this to this. Waiters started calling me sir or young man, and I loved it. In high school, I read Neil Gaiman's Sandman for the first time. One night, I decided to ask Morpheus to send me a good dream. I then dreamed about having a massive painful boner that lasted all day. In the morning, I might have to shift this way because I can't tell when the slides are popping up on the screen behind me. Another time I dreamed of waking up with a well-groomed beard. Nice! But when I looked closer, my first beard ever, and I'm already going gray? When I was in 9th grade, I got a copy of David Bowie's Changes because the girl I had a crush on at the time made an offhand comment about liking it. It was a bootleg made by my dad. Remember cassettes? Holy shit. Holy shit, the slideshow's really slow. This is amazing. It was the first time I could ever remember hearing LGBTQ references in song lyrics. I only allowed myself to listen through the cassette once per day, afraid that I would wear it out. When I discovered the iconic 1972 photo of David Bowie and Ronson, which was in the unfolded booklet that came with the CD I eventually bought, this is the sexiest picture I've ever seen. Bowie's song Andy Warhol added him to my growing list of whimsical gay heroes. Hot pink cover, the book there is The Life and Death of Andy Warhol. He didn't like choosing outfits, so he bought 100 copies of the same shirt. I also hate shopping.
Sorry, I knew Amy is like totally killing your community.
It comes, it's just some of the slides are taking a little while to load. Yeah. Genius. I was searching for myself in the lives of others. What made them decide to pursue a career in art? How did being queer influence their work? At the library, looking for a biography of Oscar Wilde. There's so many different versions. Which one looks the gayest? So many of my friends, bi, lesbian, gay, ace, cis, trans, are interested in slash or gay erotica that I am shocked when one says, I'm not. What? Really? I thought gay porn was universal. My hetero-flexible friend trying to explain why she likes lesbian porn more than gay porn. I don't know how to assign a sensation to a body part that I don't have. I assign sensation to a body part I don't have all the time. Sometimes I can almost feel where it would be, resting against my thigh. Sitting on the deck on a warm summer day when I was 16. Mom, I'm pretty sure I'm bi. I always thought you were one of those kids who could go either way. My sister and her boyfriend stayed with me recently, which is the first time I've watched someone take testosterone. So your period stopped? Months ago. Wow, amazing. So why do I identify as genderqueer instead of trans? Because really, I want people to be confused about my gender at all times. I don't want a beard, and I don't want my voice to change. I don't want more gender traits, I want less. When I was 15 and had just learned the word, I think I'm asexual. You can't be, I've seen you lust after people. Well, yeah. But not very often, and I don't enjoy it. I cheer extra loud for the asexual group every year at Pride because they have the best signs. I finally let my mom read all of these comics. You've been thinking about all of this a lot longer than I'd realized. Yes, Yep, pretty much my whole life. Trying to explain to my mom how I feel about pregnancy. The thought of growing a parasite being, parasite? What? About 24 hours later. I want you to know I never thought he was a parasite while I was pregnant. Oh, good. I remember the first time I realized I never had to have children. It was like walking out of a narrow alley into a wide open field. I never have to get married. I never have to date anyone. I don't even have to care about sex. These realizations were like gifts that I gave to myself. This is from a non-binary friend. As a genderqueer person, I'm never going to pass. I'm never going to fit into a box, unless I make that box myself, or destroy all boxes. As seniors in high school, I remember everyone in my class planning what tattoos they wanted as soon as they turned 18. I want a moon on my wrist. I'm going to get my zodiac sign. I too had a future tattoo picked out, a small Tolkien dragon. I wanted it on my forearm. A decade later, I am still tattoo-free. At 28, I dream of not of tattoos, but of top surgery. I was about 14 years old when I first met Jaina B. Jaina had pink hair, a headdress of fake flowers, and an outfit of rainbows and neon. The first time Jaina blew my mind was with NaNoWriMo. What is NaNoWriMo? National Novel Writing Month. You try to write a whole 50,000 word book in just 30 days.
I think there's a, I'm gonna miss one.
What? You've done that? More than once. 50,000 words, 1 month. My mind reeled. I have since attempted Nano 3 times and never reached the word goal. Maybe next time. Jaina and I lost touch and didn't talk for nearly 10 years until the winter of 2015. What have you been up to for the past decade? I've been ordained as a pagan priestess. And I identify as non-binary now. Wow, me too! Tell me more! For me, female presentation has always been a performance, a fun performance with sequins, glitter, and wild hair. But for a lot of my life, I felt like a drag queen trapped in a female body. That makes perfect sense. I've been thinking about switching to they/them pronouns, but for some reason that doesn't feel quite right. What pronouns do you use? I use the Spivak pronouns em, er, as in ask M what E wants in air T. Em, er? The best way I can describe the feeling of finding what would become my pronouns is thinking, at last, here is a coat that fits. With 3 small syllables, Jaina blew my mind a second time. Thank you.
And then I'd like to introduce 2 other awesome people. I should have the Honorable Mariko Tamaki. Oh my god. So if you don't know, Mariko has a ton of amazing comic books and just started doing some more, is it middle grade fiction or what age range?
The Lumberjanes is middle grade.
So this one summer,
Skim.
Skim. I was thinking milk. I was trying to think of what grade. And you've won a lot of awards, working with your cousin, the debate between Tamaki and Tamaki.
Right. We're both really comfortable with Tamaki, I think.
And then also I want to invite Jen after hanging.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, awesome. Jen and I met in person for the first time tonight, so I'm really excited to share a little bit more about everything that we're doing tonight. And interview you about these awesome books. So Mariko and Jen were from the original generation, and then Maya is our new generation for The Secret Loves of. And what I guess I would like for each of you to talk about is if you could explain to everyone sort of like a quick synopsis of your story and why you felt like that was the story that you wanted to share in the anthology. You can like shout out or go down the line or.
I feel like I probably already
You
answered
wanna
this
start?
question.
Do you want to start? You can start.
Okay. So my story was from the first one, Secret Loves of Geek Girls, and it's called Red 1:19 a.m. And it's kind of an examination of the way that text communication works in new relationships. And part of the reason I wrote it, so I'm not a cartoonist for my full-time work. I'm actually a software engineer for a cloud communications company that specializes in text messages. So I very much live and breathe the world of communications, and especially like when I wanted to take things really personal, it's like, well, how does text messaging affect my life?
Mm.
And so the angst of not getting that read receipt and really sort of feeling like what is the nature of communications and how that affects the way we feel about dating culture. So that was mine.
It's a thing, man.
Mm-hmm.
I just reread both of your guys' stories last night from the first book because I'd read them, a year or two ago when the book first came out, but I wanted to have them fresh in my mind. And I was definitely, when I read yours, Jen, I was like, how much of this is autobiographical? Okay. I was like, are these like, I wondered, like, are these actual screen caps? Because you're texting back and forth with a friend, like, when will this boy text me back? He saw the message like 3 hours ago. Oh my God. Is he dying? Like, and I wondered if you'd pulled that straight out of just screen caps.
Oh yeah, those are real.
That's wonderful.
You should be texting people like, I'm going to use this for a book, BTW.
I totally do. I'm just like, by the way, our entire text history, yes.
That's amazing. So my story is very autobiographical. It's like one of the first autobiographical things I've done in a long time. It's illustrated by Fiona Smith, who's an incredible Toronto illustrator, who actually now, if you follow her Instagram account, she's posting all of her diaries from her teenage years, and she has like tickets to seeing like the B-52s for like $6 when she was a teenager. It's so cool.
Looking that up later.
Yeah, it's amazing. So the story is about my first like lustful, passionate feelings, which were for Frankenfurter. In my case specifically, this man who played Frankenfurter, whatever I saw as Frankenfurter on the stage of the Rocky Horror in Toronto in the 90s, and how I was like discovered my queerness from like completely lusting after this person on stage, and how like I sort of became involved in the Rocky Horror Picture Show and had like various incarnations of like first like lusting after it and then being in the Rocky Horror Picture Show, which is like in my day it was like full of like people who dealt pot and stuff like that. Like it was a really seedy crowd. But yeah, just like sort of like that sort of year of like sort of 16 to 17 when you start like really in my case like really sort of like figuring out stuff, and how like my path to lesbianism was through this guy named Paul, who it turns out is like friends with Hope, I guess, and so she showed him the comic. She was like, this chick was like fully like losing, like I have like an actual like VHS recording that I made my then boyfriend make of this man while he was performing Rocky Horror, which I don't know if she told him that, but so yeah, it's intensely embarrassing, but also it's fun to have someone else like drawing you. It's like my favorite drawing of me that I've ever seen, so it's kind of cool.
So one of my sort of follow-ups to that was, once the story was out there, what were some of the experiences that you started having with people, and how did those experiences make you feel?
I haven't had anybody. I don't think I've had any. The thing is, because it's a comic, people can just appreciate the art.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's really cool, and you're like, it is. There's actually a picture where there's like.
You should open it up to show people in the book.
Yeah, the art
Because
is
it's
just
really,
crazy. Actually, so the thing that I enjoy most. Yeah, it's so cool. Like, that's what he looked like. So the thing that I enjoy the most is, can I see for a second? There's actually this picture of like, which is not autobiographical, of like this, me with my fishnets on. Of course, my fishnets are still on. So, but I was like, when I saw that picture, I was like, damn. So that's always, I wonder if people are like, oh, there's a picture of Mariko having sex in this book.
I still remember the first time I drew a comic where people were having sex, and particularly lesbians, and I had to like research it because I actually hadn't like gotten that far. So I was like, this is my best like research of it, and like put it up on the wall in the classroom, and like everybody was really quiet about it.
Wait, was this in college or high school or
This
what?
was in college.
Okay.
So
Yeah, in high school, that's a different conversation.
yeah.
Was it well received or just sort of crickets?
I think like people weren't sure how to comment on it, but I was like really into like the comic was fictional, and it was trying to show like this dichotomy between sex and violence, and so all of the compositions for the panels were exactly the same between like a fight in an alley and two women having sex, and
College.
So that was,
College.
Yeah, that's college. So you said you like on social media, in person, like has anyone no one's commented to you about this story at all?
Yeah, nobody's commented to me directly. I don't know what they're saying.
Aside
behind
from
my
you said
back.
like Hope showing it to
Yeah.
knowing the
Yeah, Hope showed it to Paul. Thanks, Hope. Yeah, no, nobody's. I mean,
But
I
you
think
never heard from Paul.
no, that would be really weird. I feel like I have, like, Facebook is like one of those places where you get messages from people who are like, hi, I don't know you, but I would like to say this about you, never having met you. And I get weird messages from there, but not anything specific about this.
Have you had anyone?
Oh, the person that I was originally like wrote the autobio like texting thing about actually figured out that it was about him.
Oh, the crush in the story.
yeah.
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness. What were the
so-
clues? How did they
Oh, he recognized the text.
Oh
I was completely transparent about it, so yeah, that was fun.
Did
It was
that
embarrassing.
lead to a date or anything? or-
Yeah, it did. It didn't last, but it was a good like short run thing. Yeah.
So second chances.
Yeah. The second volume features the breakout comic, but
Oh.
So I just want to show how interesting this is. So the text messages are going down one side and the commentary is going down the other. Was there anything in terms of figuring out that was going to be the layout that you went through?
Actually, this changed layout about 15 times. So yeah, that just it ultimately just kind of came out the way it did.
What was it about the other ones that you think didn't quite work out?
It started out like with the text messages all kind of like melting together in this like surrealist thing, and then I realized that was completely like unclear to read. And I was just like, let's go for something readable. So I just decided to make it look a little bit more like a phone.
So legibility, important in your storytelling. And then Maya, in doing your story, had you read Secret Love of Geek Girl?
I had read parts of it before I did my story because I knew a couple of the people who were in the first volume. So I think and my initial flip through was like reading all the people that I knew in person, like Marguerite Bennett, for example, who I've known since college. Yeah, it was like a really great story. And then once I was like turning in strips and I was talking to Hope more, then I went and I actually bought the book and I read it all cover to cover.
And how much when you were doing the strips? Because I know you've been doing this series kind of on and off, and different numbers, like it goes from like 1 to 44
yeah.
to...
So the strips that I've been running online, I have 130 of them, and I sent my favorite probably 30 to Hope, and she actually chose the 8 that are in the book. So I had I only sent her ones that I thought would work in the theme of the volume, but I was actually a little surprised by her choices, and they're not, like I left the numbers on them so that you could tell she chose like 8 and 9 and like 54 and 63 or whatever, and hilariously enough, 2 of the ones that she chose feature Mari Nomi, the cartoonist, as a character in the strips, and then Mari Nomi also has a comic in this volume, which is a funny coincidence that I did not plan. So you can see there's the 4 strips on the second page are all 4s that I read in the reading, and the other 4 were ones that didn't appear in this reading but that Hope liked. So
Cool.
yeah. And this, for me, this was a really special thing because I've been self-publishing comics since 2012, and I'm also a graduate of California College of the Arts, which is here in San Francisco. But this was kind of my very first major publishing credit, I guess you could say. And it was very like, yeah, like I said, I saw a screen cap of Hope's tweet asking for non-binary cartoonist submissions, and I sent them in at like 1 a.m. in an email that was like, I draw comics, here's some. And like, and then she was like, yeah, can I license some of these for a book from Dark Horse? And I was like, what? Yes? Sure. You know, so it was very exciting. And then since then, I actually pitched the strips to Lion Forge, and I just signed a contract in January, so I'll be turning these strips into a full-length memoir due out in 2019. And so I really feel like Hope sort of choosing them early on was like a huge vote of confidence that really, I don't know, made me take them seriously, I guess.
I feel like that's kind of the grand. I mean, I'm from Canada, and so is Hope. So
Yeah.
I feel like that there
And
is.
apparently everyone in Canada knows each other.
Yeah, we all. I mean, we are. You know, it's a small country. Obviously. I mean, I don't know if you guys can verify that. But like, there is this thing in publishing of like, getting published in an anthology is like your way to get like a publishing credit. And actually, so in Canada, there's this grant system, like there's like the cities, provinces, and country all have arts grants. And the way that you get them is by having like a certain number of credits and like publishing credits, which an anthology is a publishing credit. So it's actually kind of your way to like get into, it's a nice way to get into publishing is just by having, like I always say, like a novel is a really hard thing to write, but like one short story is an incredibly manageable thing. So it's like a nice way to kind of break into publishing, I think.
Yeah, it's this nice medium between the publishers and the creators, where the publishers are like, there's so many names in here that someone will want to pick this up for one of them.
Yeah.
And then for creators, you're like, oh, I can finally, when I'm pitching, I can be not to be like, I'm doing this thing on my own, but like someone else has said this is good, and then that gives you a leg up. So
yeah, also the experience of working with an editor and the experience of like, you know, then like going on tours and doing stuff. Like my first comic was a mini comic that was published by a small Canadian literary magazine. So it's like a really great way of breaking in.
And Mai said like it made you take your work a little bit more seriously.
Yeah, well, when I started this series, I mean, I started it because I kept trying to come out to my family, and that kept being basically saying, we love you so much, we have no idea what you're talking about. And me being like, okay, so clearly my attempts to explain gender identity in conversation just keep not working because, you know, maybe I'll start going down us trying to, you know, explain some point, and then they'll ask a question, and then I get sidetracked, and then we go on this tangent, and then it's like, what's for dinner? And then it's like, I never say the thing that I was trying to say. And so I started making comics about it sort of from this place of like basically frustration, being like, you're not letting me finish my point, so I'm going to sit down, and then I'm going to, you know, I'm going to thumbnail it, I'm going to write it, and then I'm going to draw it, and then I'm going to post it online, and then you have to read it, and then you'll know what I was trying to say. And so I really, when I was drawing them, it was like kind of just like a way to explain myself to my extended family, and then a lot of other people were like, I really relate to this. And so I'd never thought of it as a thing that would be published when I first started them. It was very much a like way to just communicate something that I was super frustrated about. And it's become the thing, probably the comics work that I've made that has been received the most feedback and response and of anything that I've ever made in my life. So if you're really frustrated about something, draw some comics about it. Yeah.
And also, was there any aim in kind of choosing, even if you, like Maya said that Hope chose the final ones, but the ones that you submitted, and for each of you, your stories, was there any hope that you had for what people would take away from your stories, or what effect it would have on them? No.
I say I don't, and I also think since I was in the second book, I was able to look at the first book and be like, these stories are very personal. And I almost felt like a lot of the stories in the first book were the type of things that the author writes for themselves and not necessarily for the audience. I don't know if you guys would agree with that.
Yeah. I mean, I really wanted to work with Fiona, so.
Oh. Well, I remember when I read your story, because I was very familiar with your work before this story, but I think this is the first autobiographical story of yours that I've ever read.
Yeah.
Do you have others that are published or widely available?
No,
or no?
This is it.
Yeah.
This is it.
Yeah.
Presentations that include childhood photos.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Photos, but yeah, never.
But no, comics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you could have chosen to write a fictional story, but you decided to talk about
I thought
yourself.
the point of it was to sort of get into something like true, and I thought that that is a very powerful thing. I think I also really liked the idea as it was presented to me. It was about, especially in the first one, was about like fandom, which I think has actually
yeah.
sort of taken on a new meaning. It used to be that being a fan was like a really weird thing to be. Like liking Star Wars like in the 80s was like really uncool. And now it's like, you know, for it to be your whole identity is totally fine. And I think that kind of super geeky, like outside of yourself, like this idea like that passion is something that you find in this like physical object outside of yourself, and that can be an incredibly personal thing was a really interesting concept for me. So I kind of ran with that.
I thought it was really interesting in your story, the fandom that you had, that when you became that same character, because I know for myself, a lot of my journey was like, I like that, and then I searched for it in other people, and then started saying like, oh, maybe I like to be like that, and then I found out, yes, but in yours,
It was,
you're
yeah.
Literally
It was a weird
manifested.
fit.
you're like, oh no, it's like, it wasn't a personal thing. You were looking
No,
at something else.
I really liked. I was like lusted after Frankenfurter, and then when I moved to Montreal, their Frankenfurter like took off, which is like what Frankenfurters do sometimes, I guess, like in the theater world. So I was the only person who knew all the words, and so despite the fact that I was like 5'5" and Asian and female, they were like, you can be Frankenfurter. It was actually, I think, the thing about it that was meaningful was that nobody was like, well, you're a woman and you don't look anything like this character, and you're wearing the cheapest Montreal lingerie anybody's ever worn ever. Nobody had any problem with it. And I think that is also, for me, was incredibly liberating, was like, oh, like, I can do whatever I want. And also I get to be close to the magenta, and the magenta was really hot. So that was a clarifying moment for me.
The truth comes out.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So, Jen, did you have any particular story in terms of how you got involved with the project? Or?
Yeah, I hope and I were friends, and I had just been doing like a lot of like just my own work on trying to create some comics, and so she was like, hey, you know, I'm working on putting this together. This is a good first thing to do. So yeah, so it's kind of like you were mentioning earlier, like with the Canadian arts.
Are you also from Canada?
I'm not. I'm
Okay.
from Ohio.
Okay.
Relax.
Yeah.
She's the only one of us up here.
Yeah, no, but the idea that like these anthology things are a little bit less scary way to kind of get out there and do creative output and
Yeah.
yeah.
I think it's also worth noting that, like, I think that people like to think that your creative impulse has to come free form and from your own, you know, like motivation. But for someone to give you an exercise and say, write about this for 5 pages is actually what most of writing work is. Most of writing work is somebody to say to you, like, here's your character, here's the amount of space you have, here's when it's due, please do it for this time. I mean, sometimes it's writing novels and stuff, but it can be both. And so that's a really good thing for someone to be like, hey, I'm making this anthology, it's about this. Can you submit something? Is like
Specific.
a lot of writing work is just responding to that.
And I feel like if you're coming from a student background, that's so much more approachable because we're so used to like getting assignments from professors and having specifications of length and content and due dates, etc. And you know how to turn in an assignment if you just think of it in that way.
Yeah, I used to teach this comics class with this woman, Willow. And we used to come up with assignments, and there was this one woman in the class who was like, what is this assignment? She was like, I don't understand assignments. Like, it was like a box that we were putting her in, and I was like, it's like work? Like, just write this thing. And she was like, well, it's not, like, I'm not feeling it. And I was like, then don't do it. It's like a college class. Like, whatever. You can do whatever you want. But, yeah, like, a lot of work is. I mean, some of it is, like, emotionally responding to things, and some of it is responding to something more specific.
Yeah, and a direct, I guess, link into that is so after submitting the strips to this, and then Hope accepting them. So then I friended her on Facebook, and then we met at Comic-Con, so we sort of know each other in person a little bit. And then a few months after Comic-Con, I then saw she posted, she was doing the the Gothic Tales of Haunted Love anthology, and they had an artist drop out really last minute. And so she was like, we need a pinch hitter artist super last minute, like link your portfolio if you have time. And so I responded to that, and then I ended up getting a second job, also from Hope, to illustrate a script by her co-editor, S.M. Biko, for the Gothic Tales of Haunted Love, which is a long mouthful of a title, but an excellent book. And yeah, so that was one where I didn't know the author beforehand. I didn't know that, I didn't, they wanted it in like 6 weeks, and I'd never even seen the script, but it was very much like, okay, here's what you have, very quick timeline, everything about it is already set, page size, content, like everything. You just need to draw it very quickly because the book is going to print.
Right, and that's
so,
comics too. Sometimes
Yeah.
you're related to the people that you make comics with, and sometimes they're people you will never meet.
Yeah.
So, what have your other creative endeavors been, or is this kind of your first?
So I'm working on something it's taking a while, so it's not like published or anything. But I'm working on like a graphic novel kind of thing for myself. But then completely outside of that, I hack on hardware, and I've been like taking toys apart and putting different robot components in them. So it's a different kind of creative endeavor.
That's totally awesome. Yeah.
Mention the theme of your graphic novel. We were talking about it before this started.
It's like Dark Jetsons. Like it's got the like optimistic '60s like future view, but like if it was run by the mob.
I am very excited for this comic. I just want to say, please actually make this because I want to read it. Okay, good. Okay, good.
No, I work on it like for like 6 hours a week.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
The one biggest thing for people coming here for classes is you should also do comics at home, and they're like, yeah. So it's really important to kind of carve out that time. I'm glad that you can find that. So did you guys have anything else that you wanted to share about your stories? Any like little side notes or things that you didn't include that you wish maybe you had added on?
This isn't about mine at all, but I was going to say me and Nina are running the Prism Queer Comics Awards for the second time this year, and Rico was the MC at our awards show last year. And one of the people who won a very first Prism Award got a story in the second Geek's book. And it's another sort of like very new, just starting out comics author from Finland, I want to say. And so I didn't know they were going to be in the book until I got it, and then I flipped it and I was like, oh my gosh, I recognize this name because they won the award in our award show last year. And so I was just so excited to see their work in there. And just being like, yes, it's like another person who's like doing the exact same thing as like building the credits through like a little, a short story that wins an award, a short story that gets into a book, So I was just very excited about that when I got my copy. So yeah.
I think the name is H.P.
Yes.
Lakonen.
Yeah.
I have not heard them say it, so I don't know if that's exactly correct.
Yeah.
But yes.
That's our best guess. So anyway, H.P. Lakonen, rising name to keep track of.
Cool. Can I see the book?
Yeah.
Have you not looked at it yet? Oh.
No.
It looks really nice.
No, I will say the best part of being a writer is that you get free books, and as
Yeah.
I've often said, it's still exciting to get free
Yeah.
books. Like I'm always like, it's a free book. I'm like, oh my god, it's for me, it's amazing. But I don't have this one yet. I'll bug Hope.
I'm sure she's got one with your name on it.
Yeah,
I got
come on.
one a week or two ago in the mail. Yours might be
Maybe
on
it's
the way.
coming.
On
Maybe
the
it's
way.
coming.
Another way to get free books is if you become a book reviewer. And then I write book reviews for Publishers Weekly, and I'm one of their indie comics specialists. So I get free books in the mail a couple of times a month, and then I get paid to read them, and it's pretty rad.
It is, but then there's the pressure of like having to really read it so that you can review it later.
Yes, I have to close read.
I used to do book reviews until I realized it was making me too sleepy. Like I was just constantly being like, is this good or bad? I don't know. Like trying to think of something witty to say about it, and I just like, now I just love just reading and being like, I didn't really pay attention to the middle part. Whatever. So my favorite detail in my story is that so both Fiona and I are from Toronto, and she's like a art legend in Toronto. But she knew one of the things is I have this goth boyfriend who gets me an ID or a membership in the Sanctuary Vampire Death Bar, which is an actual place, and the ID she drew is exactly what the ID looked like.
She also had
Yeah, so she obviously also had one. And the best part of that is that I had to remember, so I got this ID, from my boyfriend at the time, who like obviously had never met, didn't know how to spell my last name, and so guessed. And so
Do you want me to spell it?
he spelled it Tumachi, like Tumachi. But I've always wanted, because I lost it, so now it's like I have it again, because she like drew it, and that is exactly what it looked like.
She recreated a lost artifact of your
I know.
youth.
It's a Starbucks now. Every time I go by, I'm like, so many people bought like players' lights from guys in like, tote bags and stuff like that there, and now you can just get a latte.
So what are you telling me is if someone wanted to do some graphic design and create like maybe like T-shirts or something that were like with the logo of this club and sell them online, there'd be like a market for that?
Oh
perhaps?
my god.
Yeah.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, like
It was
you would buy
such
one probably.
Oh, I would totally.
I don't know. Got to side hustles, man.
It's like all these like iconic signs are like gone. Like for anybody who knows Toronto, like the Honest Ed's just got demolished, so this like really iconic sign is now completely gone. And I was just like, if anyone wants to make some money, they should be making some Honest Ed
Merch.
Yeah, they would make a fortune.
I know that Elizabeth Byer kind of got her foothold by becoming the person to memorialize
Yeah.
the Lexington Club.
Yeah.
When that got
That's all you get. That's all you need. Some
Yeah, I don't know
timing and
if
some
people in the
sadness.
audience know Elizabeth Byer is a San Francisco cartoonist who released last year the Big Book of Bisexual Trials and Errors from Northwest Press, which is an excellent comic. And I did this exact same reading that I did tonight at her opening party at Mission Comics last fall. I was her opening act. And yeah, that was one of the things that's so beautiful about the book is she captures several like full page, double page spreads of like San Francisco landmarks that if you are a local, you're like, I know exactly where, like, I know that street corner exactly. Like I know where you were standing when you drew this, where you took the reference photo. And yeah, some photos of the sign, especially of the Lex and the inside, and interviewing people about what that club meant to them and stuff. So
Yeah.
she kind of memorialized it.
Nostalgia comics are going to be like a big.
I
big
feel
market.
like nostalgia, everything is in right now. Like, I don't know. I feel I've had so many conversations with people about how like it's the 90s. Like everyone is like this weird nostalgia for the 90s happening.
Like everybody's wearing those little like
those
stretchy
little
wire
the
necklaces.
scrunchie yes, and like the butterfly.
That I'm
hair.
like, what the hell are you wearing?
Did you wear one of those in the
I had
90s?
so many of those.
Yeah. Would you do it again or no?
No, I feel like I can't do it anymore. It's not nostalgic, but for me, it's like having I long ago decided that I could only have a Hello Kitty purse until like my mid-20s, and then I would stop. I mean, there's no rule. I just decided that, but I feel like at some point people are just like, that's so sad, Like, I mean, I'm not exactly dressed maturely or anything, but I feel like I made some decisions.
What's the thing for you, Jen, that's like the thing from your past that you kind of want to again?
Ooh,
Do you-
jelly shoes.
Jelly shoes?
Yeah.
Yes, you can still buy jelly heels. I feel like those are like, except I don't feel like they were fun to walk in. Was my
They were
memory.
like really uncomfortable, but I loved them.
Yeah.
Especially the glitter ones.
You can still buy them on Amazon.
Cool. Right.
There you go.
Just like flashback to like remembering the feel of my feet going into them when
Like
from,
cages.
Like, the left.
Yes, unhappy cages of plastic for your feet. Like those ballet
They
slippers.
sparkled.
I
Right.
like how they were like slightly stretchy and there's some so I don't always wiggle my toes in them.
Yeah. Like they get clear Doc Marten boots, like jelly boots that are like, and I keep thinking like, that's only cool if you have like really good socks and nice feet. Otherwise, problematic.
So with that, does anyone have any questions that you'd like to ask our panelists?
About jelly shoes.
About
Anyway,
the
I need
the
those things.
90s.
Don't let me take that because I will.
If you were asked to be involved in another anthology, is there a type of story or a specific personal story that you think you would want to do for like book 3?
I mean, I really love fan fiction, and I don't know. The thing is, I don't know in terms of copyright what the issue would be, but I would love to just full on do like mashups. Like I would love to do like a like Avengers and the Golden Girls kind of thing, like where you just have like free reign to do like whatever combination of like, especially like 80s television shows, like Empty Nest meets like Iron Man or something. So if that was actually legally possible, I think that would be amazing.
Yeah, they get away with all the t-shirts and everything.
I know.
Yeah, that's true. Creative license.
I know, maybe, but I doubt it.
Satire.
Yeah,
Fair
exactly.
use.
Yeah, that would be my goal.
I think I'd probably explore the fandom side of things because I didn't do that in the first 2 books. So I would say that like that's something that like if I really embraced that side of the theme, that would have been interesting.
What fandoms?
Ooh, so that's where we get tricky. Probably Star Trek,
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Any particular
Next Generation?
series?
Next Generation, or DS9. Yes.
I just want to do like my imaginary interview with Patrick Stewart as like, you know, I thought that would be cool.
I just don't want to do a love story between Patrick Stewart and Geordie LaForge.
Oh.
Patrick Stewart and Ian
Where Jordy has to
McKellen.
like take off his little thing. It's
Like a little sexy
takes
move.
off his little thing. White eyes.
Make it serious.
I feel like everything that I would contribute to another volume is going into my genderqueer book,
There you go.
frankly, and I talk quite a bit about fan fiction in it. And this is a thought I had earlier when you were talking about like fandom, and that was one of the things you explored in your story, is that I think what's so powerful about talking about fandom is it can be a like lens through which you talk about your own desires, but without actually maybe admitting to things, especially if
Sure.
you say you're talking about fan fiction with friends. This was something I definitely did in college a lot, which was like, hey, did you read that fan fiction where, you know, maybe this character and this character did this, like, fell into this one specific trope. Oh my god, yes, that was like so hot. I think you would like this other one too. And it's you're sort of like gently fleshing out like what turns the other person on by like recommending fan fiction stories and then like hearing what they thought about them.
Right.
So it's kind of like you're talking about your own sort of like desires, but there's this sort of like screen that makes it sort of a safer or less stressful conversation if that's not something you're yet able to talk about more openly.
Yeah, I
So-
mean, it's a way to talk very personally about
Yes.
something outside of yourself.
Yes.
Yeah, because if
So-
you were to be like, oh, I did this with my ex, people would
Yeah,
be like,
like,
that's like a
oh,
little
that's a little,
intense. You're
yeah.
like, I read this thing where like,
Yeah,
you
where
know,
this and
Krychek
this-
and Mulder were like doing this thing. People
Yeah.
are like, oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, so just having fan fiction as sort of like a lens to have this conversation, and then also just to make it, I don't know, I really, that's sort of one of the things that excites me about it, as well as being just like so nerdy and being like, yes, like what is your ship from your childhood? What characters did you want to smush together? You know, so yes.
And then I kind of like I feel like I dropped the ball talking about fandom. This will be my last question. So in terms of your overall fandom and involvement in like comics, and your like obviously by virtue of being in these, we all have the official, or you guys all have the official title of Geek. So how has being a geek affected your relationships, whether they're romantic or friendships or otherwise? And do you have any like notes about that or lessons for how to?
I mean, I can't imagine that. Like, my girlfriend and I spend extensive periods of time after we see a movie, like going through in minute detail everything we liked and didn't like and comparing. And I think that that's like such an essential part of like absorbing any kind of pop culture for me now. Like, she watches RuPaul's Drag Race with me now, which is such a relief, because before I was just like, you don't know what's going through my head right now. I have so much to say. So now we can like watch it together, and she always picks who's gonna get kicked off, which is really fascinating to me. So yeah, I feel like it's so essential, and I feel like, I mean, I think the thing that I love too is that you can be like a Modern Family super fan, or you can be, you know, like.
You can be geeky about anything.
Yeah,
No.
it's all up there, like, you know, Candy or whatever. Like, you just pick your thing, or like my thing is reality television. Like, that's my obsession. And also like you can kind of cross pollinate. Like, I've definitely brought like, I did a series for Adventure Time where I asked them if I could do like my version of like a Project Runway / America's Next Top Model in like an Adventure Time series, and they were like, yeah, go for it. So I think it's like it can be a productive, you know, living wage, you know, being a fan, which I think is really great.
I think you're right. Like, one of the things that's really great about geeks, and I think why a lot of us like self-select to like find geeky partners, is being a geek about something means that you have passion.
Yes.
And like that's just something that like is really, really amazing to latch onto in another person.
Yeah, I often, like, even if I don't care about the thing that the other person is geeky about, I love asking people, like, yeah, what is the thing you're geeky about? Because I like whatever causes the other person to, like, sit up and start talking more quickly and, like, their eyes start shining and they're, like, waving their hands around because they love it so much. I want to hear about whatever that is for the person that I'm talking to, even if I, like, and I will then start to become invested in it because of their level of investment in it. And, like, I find that sort of, like, the other person's joy in it very joyful to, like, share and behold. So I love that. And I would say that pretty much my entire life, all of my friendships have been, because I've been at school most of my life, walking into a classroom setting, looking around and being like, who looks like literally the nerdiest person in this entire room? I want to sit next to them. I made 2 really good friends in college because they were both wearing Latin Club t-shirts. And I walk up to them, and within our very first conversation, we started talking about gay pornography. And I was like, these people will be friends for life. And yeah, it's just... I love basing relationships on shared excitement and passion, even if it isn't necessarily about the same subject.
Yeah, I mean, I had this friend once, and we were on a road trip, and the last day, he basically just ran through the whole last season of Angel, like minute by minute. We just talked about it in the car, and I was just like, because he remembered like every single detail, and I've still never seen the show.
So he basically like narrated the entire season too.
Yes, he narrated it, and he's a really good writer too. So he narrated in very rich detail, like all these things that had happened. And by the end, I was like, what happens next? And he was like, okay, then this person falls through the ceiling or whatever it was that happened. But it was like fascinating, and like I can get into somebody else's fandom if it's like it's like when you go to Comic-Con and you see people so dressed up and they're like sweating buckets because they're wearing like a neoprene Batman suit, and it's like
or they're dressed as Sherlock from the BBC Modern Sherlock with a full-length wool coat and it's 99 degrees.
Yeah. For me, the Batmans are the like most intense because that's a full body rubber. Like that's like that's
commitment.
That's a lot of talc. You know what I mean? But I feel like like I love Batman. I don't love Batman that much, but I love those people with their like homemade suits. Like the most.
Just that like hardcore spirit.
Yeah. I mean, I want to be near them when they take the suit off. But I do love that.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for coming out tonight.
Thanks for having us.
And your geekiness with us. The gift that never stops giving.
That's correct.
I also wanted to mention that if you can find a copy of the Geek Girls, another amazing artist who is local who was not able to make it out tonight. Let me see if I can pull up.
Is Trina on there?
Yeah, Trina.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Does anyone know her personal address? Definitely check out these books. So, like I said, we may have one copy up at the front. We may have a couple copies of Jen Wang's book. I want to give a shout out to, we actually have been getting our accounts kind of reset, and as we were hoping to have more books for tonight's event, they did not show up. So we were very excited when the community rallied and we got shops from Brian's Comics in
Petaluma.
Thank you. I was like,
oh wow, really?
Yeah, I picked up 3 books from Brian on my way in this evening that he had set aside for us.
Oh, that's
calling
nice.
him last night to, and they all like gave us a good deal because they know the money goes to a good cause. And then also Fantastic Comics in Berkeley in the East Bay. They're really awesome. And Escapist Comics, if you've ever been in there, I feel like it's like an unending like tunnel wormhole of comics forever and ever. So if you ever just want to like browse and find hidden gems, definitely go there. It's kind of comic shop that I grew up on. And then they have an event coming up.
Escapist?
Yes, on Saturday, February 24th. That's this Saturday, from 3 to 6 p.m. They have Liam Sharp for Brave and the Bold #1. So, a little
Awesome.
reminder. And then also Comics Experience has Jen Wang will be visiting again from LA on the 16th in the evening.
Of March? 16th of March?
Must
Must be. Okay, cool. Great, I missed her last time. Maybe I can catch her on the second one.
So thank you guys again.